story about Pendleton, Oregon, and they were having a city council meeting, and they decided to tweak its nuisance ordinance to include a $500 fine for excessive marijuana smoke emanating from a property.
Oh, wow. There's such a thing now.
Mm-hmm. Marijuana itself becomes legal in Oregon coming up in July. So what they're trying to say is you can have a $500 fine if it smells really bad.
Oh.
Okay. So here's what happened. A guy by the name of Peter Wellers saw one scourge on society eliminated and penned a letter to the East Oregonian urging the council to correct the other offensive smells that plague our community. Farts. He said, farts may be legal in Oregon. Many, including myself, are offended by the flatulent stench, and that habitual farters argue that they need to fart for medical reasons, but that doesn't mean my kids have to smell their farts. He cites a smelly roommate whose recreational farting has been negatively affected by my quality of life for several months now. As if he who smelt it dealt it. I call on our city council to set aside all other work and address this problem.
Nice.
The letter is getting attention, and NBC News has stepped up to cover it.
Of course, because that's what's interesting.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
It's
amazing.
just awesome. I would love to talk to this guy, but now that he's gotten this national attention, we'll probably never get him on. But, I mean, how original.
Well, and my question is, did the guy who is doing all the farting, I mean, was it really skunky weed that he ate? That's kind of what I'm wondering. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's probably just junk food. I mean, depends on what does it for you. I mean, I know what brings me to the table.
Yeah, anything lately.
hey, that's why I'm recording from this studio and Jason's recording from that one.
Right, and I don't have my little apparatus on. No air filtration units or anything like that. Hey, welcome to the show. It's the Bill and Jason Show. That's Bill Herman. Oops, that's Bill Herman. I'm Jason Jones, and this week we've got another really great show for you. What's that?
I said, I think so.
I do too. Do you, when you recently got to be super entertainer extraordinaire, traveling to beautiful San Diego to do a show. Lucky. Well, not lucky you. You create your own luck. You have some national fame, so it's not surprising that they're trucking you around. How was that experience actually? Preparing in advance and then bringing the whole show for a wedding reception to San Diego, to another location out of state. There's no running home to get an adapter.
No, there's not. You're right. I've been lucky over the last few years to be able to do just that. Go around the country and do what I do as an MC someplace other than where I can drive to. And the last 3 months, I've been Wisconsin, I've been Detroit, and like you said, San Diego. And that one was by referral, believe it or not. I did a wedding in a small northern Wisconsin town called Minocqua, which is like an island. They call it an inland island because it's surrounded by water, tributaries and stuff like that.
No,
so
I love
city,
the name Minocqua.
You have to go over this river, and then the city is kind of surrounded by almost a moat of rivers and tributaries.
It's in the name, like Mini Aqua.
Mini Aqua. Oh yeah, I never thought about that. Okay, now I have. So anyway, I did a wedding there, and then from that wedding, a gentleman hired me to come to Alaska. I tell a story about that in our workshop, and I've told a lot of stories about that.
That's an amazing story. And I think you've told that in one of our podcasts.
Yeah, in fact, I think I did.
Which one? I have no idea, but go listen to them all. You'll hear it.
Yeah, exactly. And then from that, I did his daughter's wedding there, and then his son was getting married, and he's a military man, and this was on the Naval Training Center, NTC, and an NTC Barracks 17 in San Diego. Which is right there down by the water, and they asked me to come to San Diego. And it is, you're right, an interesting logistical thing to do a wedding outside of your backyard, and most of it is that preparation that will just, if you let it, just drive you insane because you're worried about things you're going to forget. You You go to an event early enough in your backyard, you forget an adapter, you can drive back, or you can call somebody and they can go get it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you know where the stores are, so you know how to go find the one last open Radio Shack that hasn't completely been closed yet.
Right.
To get what you need.
Lock in Radio Shack on your radar. Where is Radio Shack? There'll be underground adapter dealers after this.
So yeah, and it was. There were lots of interesting things. The first thing that you find that you have to deal with that is because they're not in the backyard, and you want to get to know these people. You have to do it by phone, or you have to do it by Skype, like what we're doing today. So you get to know each other that way, and then all of your meetings are this way. And then even like I do lots of things with my couples around questionnaires and being able to just have conversations like this. And one of the things that I've done in the past is to do some pretty good audio edits where I help to cut the bride and groom into their special spotlight dances.
Oh yeah, well you've got the workshop, the art of the audio edit workshop too, where people can learn the art of that.
Right, and this young lady wanted to do it, and I was always like, unless you're going to be here, or I'm going to be able to fly out there early. And they were living in Seattle. And planning this down in San Diego. So we weren't even, neither of us are even near the space where we're going to be having the reception. So I was kind of embarrassed around the idea that it took me until about 3-4 weeks before the reception to figure out that if I just took the recorder that I usually use and send it to her.
Oh yeah.
So logistically, that's how we worked that out. I sent the recorder. We talked to each other on Skype, so I could see how she placed the recorder, where she put it, how close she was to it, to test it again to be sure she was recording, and then record and interview her. And then she put it back in a box and sent it to me, and I was able to edit it.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think, didn't you, when you were in Indianapolis that you did that, you just had someone there go and like record for you and then send you the audio files and someone that knew how to record audio? I
did do that. I had a couple of people in Indianapolis when I did that wedding that I knew what I was able to do that. But the problem was in San Diego, the few people that I knew were 90 miles away.
Well, and they're in Seattle.
Right, and they were up in Seattle. So being able to find that person at the right time. Plus, a couple of times I've done it, they've recorded for me and they've sent it to me, and then it was not as good a quality as I wanted. So, when you're a single operator like me, you've got all these control issues about what you want it to be. So this was a great solution around being sure it was exactly the way I wished it to be.
Were there any challenges with just kind of knowing what you're going to deal with in the venue, or knowing what to expect at the venue? I mean, it's really when you have your own territory, like around the Twin Cities, you a lot of the venues you get asked to do, you've been there before, you know what to expect, what about the staff, the layout, things like that. Were there any particular challenges around not knowing that going in the day of that maybe that you could have done something in advance with?
There were. The only thing that I could do in advance before getting there was to have anybody that I knew go over and check it out. The one gentleman that I knew in that neck of the woods, Ken Day, who's a disc jockey out there, who helped me find someone to bring in the sound support we needed to do it, said he had played the facility, and he described it to me about kind of how it was and how it wouldn't be too tough, and these are the little issues I might have. But even the conversation on the phone and pictures from the venue and layouts that I got via email really didn't do what I needed it to do until I got there on the Friday before. I got there the day before, and then I walked, because the venue wasn't very far from the hotel. I walked down and I just checked out the space. And honestly, even checking out the space, it comes down to what it comes down to is kind of knowing the people you're talking to, that they can communicate to you what you really need to know, when honestly you have to see it for yourself.
So it's knowing what questions to ask?
Knowing what questions to ask, and knowing that, well, yes and no. I mean, I even had a problem the day that we did set up, where I came into that courtyard, and the people who were running the facility were there putting up tables, and I looked at it and looked down at my stuff and my layout, and I said, well, it looks like this is where the sweetheart table is, and this is where the tables are going to be, and this is the dance floor. And I said, is that correct? And he goes, that's absolutely correct. And I said, great. So while he's running around doing his stuff, I was there really, really early. I wasn't set up before the tables. So I set up my speakers where I needed them to be on either side of the sweetheart table, a good 10 feet on either side. So no, they wouldn't be in the picture. And I get them all set up, and then he starts setting up the tables. Much differently than what's on my design. Much different than what he told me. And then as I turn on the sound, he goes, oh, you can't have those speakers pointed that direction, because if you do, on the other side of the building lives the admiral's wife. And if the admiral's wife hears the music and it's too loud, then we have a problem. So you're going to have to turn those speakers around. And I'm like, turn the speakers around. Turning the speakers around would turn the speakers around and point them at the wall behind me. I'm like, I can't do that. He goes, sure you can. People do it all the time. I'm like, no. And I said, so why are you putting the sweetheart table over there? You told me it was going to be here. He says, well, no, that's where the sweetheart table goes. And I went, well, that's okay. Well, then that's where I need to put my speakers. And that's not pointing towards the admiral's wife's house, is it? He goes, no. And I said, okay. But I mean, we had literally set up the speakers. We had to tear them down, move them over. And even in that communication, we still had issues. So most of it, what I find for me, and it might be the same for you or anybody else listening, is that you have to let go, or rather know that you always have more control in your own backyard, and or at least you have an illusion of it.
Sure.
And then now I'm going halfway across or all the way across the country, rather, to do an event, and I have to trust that people think the way that I do. So I do my best to kind of get in front of all those things well ahead of time by hiring the equipment that I'm used to having, making sure I have a veteran disc jockey who knows how to do what he's doing, someone who's bringing his own equipment, who understands how it works and how to make it work when it's not working, because I know what I can do with mine, and I'm not shipping all of my gear over there, because it would cost them way too much to do that.
Right.
So and then dealing with that, which was the hardest part for me. Hardest part for me is dealing with the fact that there's so little that I do have control over, and I'm really going to be dealing with it on that day. And even with all the things that I packed here, putting my laptop together, which I didn't use, by the way, which is really more of a backup, writing all my scripts, making sure my scripts are uploaded online to Dropbox and all the extra music, emailing the music and the scripts to the DJ is going to be there with me, putting them all on a thumb drive, taking my laptop and my iPad and my headphones and an extra microphone, all these things that I know I don't have because I paid this guy to bring them. And I'm still 2 days before the event at home in Minneapolis, not sleeping, sure that I'm not going to bring what I need. And then the night before on Friday, when I walk down and I look at the space and there's a DJ there who's set up in a really horrible place that I think, oh my God, that's where I'm going to make it set up. And it's echoey and booming, and they're underneath this weird Adobe thing that the speakers are just kind of booming on the inside of this 10 by 10 Adobe space.
Oh, strange.
I'm thinking, now I'm going to deal with this. How am I going to figure that out? And then I don't sleep the night before because I'm worried about that. And then I get there, and then only a few of things I have to deal with. And the DJ that came, his name is Victor Cannon, and he lives about 90 miles away from San Diego, and a veteran like myself, really talented. He with all kinds of backup stuff that probably more backup stuff than I even bring.
Wow.
So he came to the table thinking like I did.
Yeah.
He took over and did everything he needed to do. When I had any kind of a worry, he said, I'll take care of it. And he did.
That's awesome.
And if I would have fallen unconscious and he would have had to DJ, he had all the skills to be able to make it happen. So it made everything really, really easy.
Wow.
And then,
so it sounds like checklists.
Yeah, it was checklists and making sure. But even that, I mean, you take all that stuff away, and now I've never met the bride's parents. I'm doing a Vietnamese wedding and they're Vietnamese, and I'm doing Vietnamese traditions that I'm not completely sure that I understand, even though I've researched them and talked to people. I need to talk to her, and there's a language barrier, so I need to have a translator, which I didn't get until the day of the wedding. There's the family that I do know, and the
did
bride,
they know how to translate Bill?
I'd have somebody had to translate how I speak, and then how that goes into translating into Vietnamese.
So they laughed at all your jokes, is what you're saying?
Oh my goodness! Well, I think it was my jokes they were laughing at. Yeah, it was and with all of that stuff, and I think I'm always convinced that all of the the backup that I do and all of the worry that I put into things is the reason why I'm successful, because I'm used to being ready for anything that might happen.
Right. Yeah.
And making sure. One of the neatest things about the wedding itself was that she was Vietnamese. His mother's Filipino, even though they didn't have any Filipino traditions. They did have one Vietnamese tradition, and only a piece of it, which is where the bride, partway through dinner, exits and changes into a dao dai, which is a Vietnamese gown, traditional Vietnamese gown that represents the family's, the family, and it's respect for her family, respect for her heritage, and has and usually red, which is talks about or speaks to auspiciousness and prosperity and happiness and health for the wedding. And then you go around to each table and greet and introduce each other to everyone at the table. And in that the people at the table, their opportunity during this tradition is to give the bride and groom well wishes and to literally hand them their gift at that time, if in fact that's something they hope to do. A beautiful tradition, a tradition that, in American weddings, people see as it's a little long.
Put it on the table. Just put it on the table.
Yeah, it's a little long. Yeah, they leave it at the thing. I literally waited at the front door we were not front door. They were in a courtyard. We were outside.
So they don't,
and
they
I
don't
just
like
greeted
open it
people
on
as they
the spot,
arrived,
do
and
they?
as they came up with the card, I'd say, well, you can put the card in the card box if you wish, but there is this tradition. If you want to be a part of it, hold on to it, and you can do
bring
this
the gift, so they can look it up and go like, no chicken for you.
Yeah, no chicken for you.
Well, it's
There were no chickens.
If it's a bad gift. No, if like dinner, never mind. I have to explain it. It's not funny. It's not funny. Oh, tell us, what do you do to prepare for your events, even if you're not going far to some far-flung place like Bill? Like if it's just even in town, like do you use checklists? Do you use something new? Share something that all of us can use. You can post it right down below here on the YouTube.
Absolutely.
Or post it at the Bill and Jason Show website page or on the Entertainment Experience or anywhere on Facebook and tag us. We don't care.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you have not yet gone and subscribed to our podcast on iTunes, you can get the audio version. You can listen to it in your car. You can tell us what you think. There's a place to post comments there and to review our podcast. And if you haven't followed us on Twitter or Facebook, we've got a good, we got like tens of hundreds. We got like, we got very few followers and very few Twitter people. We want you.
Yeah.
Tell everybody you know.
And if you review our podcast and you buy a lottery ticket, you could win some money.
Yes, absolutely. And if you give us a cool comment, we'll probably talk about you on the air. If you give us a nasty comment, we will probably absolutely talk about you on the show.
All right. Thanks for tuning into the Bill and Jason Show this week. We'll talk to you again next week.
Bye.
Broadcasting from high atop planet Earth at a rate of 96 kilobytes sampled per second over the interweb in an effort to stop glorifying being busy. This has been an Entertainment Experience production.